Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user BFFSGF. My 25 female best friend's 25 male girlfriend 30 female treats me like I'm his ex and will not stop asking me for advice on how to handle him. When I told her to stop, she accused me of being in love with him. About Dan, 25 male. We have been best friends for 20 years, met in preschool and have been close ever since. We have never had any romantic feelings for each other or anything like that. He's basically my brother, I'm his sister. The idea of it is frankly gross. I think we have healthy boundaries and have never had a problem with our respective significant others. We see each other maybe 6 times a month, half of the time in a group of friends or on double dates, half the time catching up over lunch or seeing movies neither of our significant others want to see. About Allison, 30 female, Dan's girlfriend of 1 year. I'm friends with her through him, but we're not close. She always acts a little superior when we hang out in a group because she's older. But you'll see what I mean in a few years. You think you have it hard now, wait until... I have always thought she was insecure because she demanded access to his social media passwords not long after they started dating, but it wasn't really any of my business. The problem. Allison will always run to me whenever she and Dan have problems. For one thing, this has always made me a little uncomfortable because I didn't want to know their business. And for another, she always phrased her questions as if I had dated Dan intimately in the past. Some examples. How did you ever put up with his mood swings? Or do you have any tips for how to cope with him when he's stressed from work? Or, how do you get him to make the bed? Was he cleaner in the past? Or, did his mom like you when she first met you? I've told her time and time again that I met Dan when I was 5 and haven't experienced any of the things she asks about with him. I could go on about the other questions she's come to me with, none of which I can answer, but whenever I tell her just to talk to him, she stops texting me. So I've been ignoring her texts if she approaches me with a relationship problem between them, which is the only time she texts me. Yesterday she texted me and seemed to initiate a normal conversation. When I asked her how she was doing, she said she was in pain, sad face. So of course I asked her why. She then proceeded to send a really long message about how she doesn't enjoy sex with Dan because he's not as skilled as her other exes and doesn't get her excited enough, but doesn't know how to talk to him about it without hurting his feelings and wanted my advice or help. I immediately told her I did not want to know anything about that and that somebody else, anybody closer to her, was probably better suited to talk to her about it. My main reasons were that 1, I felt awkward this was way too intimate of a topic for me because she's someone I don't really know. And 2, I feel like Dan would feel really embarrassed if he knew I had all this knowledge about a private thing between them. When I suggested she talk to someone else, Allison called me and immediately launched into this tirade where she accused me of being in love with Dan and that this had all been a test to see if I still had feelings for him. She said I would be comfortable talking about this unless it was too painful for me because I hated seeing him with another woman. I told her that was crazy and reminded her that I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years. She told me I was immature and that she was going to tell Dan about this. I said, go ahead, confident that he was going to see how crazy she sounded. She hung up and I didn't hear anything from either of them again. I didn't want to call or text Dan right away because he had an extremely important exam to study for and I thought he'd have enough on his hands with that and with Allison freaking out on him. I thought I would just wait until it all blew over the next day. Well, today I decided to message him on Facebook to wish him well for his exam and found out that his profile had disappeared. Not just unfriended me, but either blocked me or deactivated the profile, period. I tried texting him and calling him, but it seems like he's sending me to voicemail. I left one message asking him to call me back, but so far it's been 8 hours and I've gotten nothing. Is there anything I can do? Sad face. I don't think my friend of 20 years would just vanish into the ether on me, but I don't know what to do about this other than doing something crazy like showing up at his house. Is there anything I can do? Wow, OP, it sounds like this Allison lady escaped some compound or something. This is a 30-year-old woman testing a friend just because she's jealous, or I don't know. I honestly can't understand her reasoning. It doesn't make any sense. She's definitely got some insecurity issues. I mean, you said so in the beginning of your post. She asked for your friend's passwords and everything to his social media so she could control him. That's just so weird. The worst thing is that he allowed it and he didn't see that this was a red flag. Honestly, considering the way that she behaved, saying it was all a test, what a weird test it was, and that she has access to all of his social media and stuff like that, she might have been the one that blocked you out of everything. But I guess you're never gonna know unless you talk to him. So here's the thing. Honestly, I don't think it would be crazy if you go over to his house and ask for an explanation. This is your oldest friend in the world. He is like your brother, as you say, so of course you wouldn't want this relationship to die. So here's what I would do if I were you. Since you can't contact him to meet him somewhere, go to his house, there's no problem with that. Then ask him if you can talk to him for 5 minutes, show him the text messages that she sent you, you know, those crazy intimate messages that she sent you, and then ask him why he blocked you. What did she tell him to make him block you? And if he didn't block you, then he'll know how nuts this whole thing is. And then whatever happens, it's on him and on her. That's as far as you can go. And what do you guys think about this situation? What would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Timothy says, "Oof, you made a big mistake allowing her to make the first move here. You should have shown him the texts immediately." Anyways, I can't imagine what his girlfriend could have told him that would cause him to totally cut contact with you. And if he really did, instead of her blocking you on his Facebook without him knowing, then he's not such a great friend. I don't think showing up at the house of a friend of 20 years is weird, by the way. But you have friends in common, right? Tell them immediately what happened. Don't let her get the first story in again, and ask them to mediate this. Don't leave a voicemail telling him to call back. Just send an email plainly saying his girlfriend is insane and that this all happened because she thinks you're in love with him. There's no telling what she told him. Get this info out. Say she told him you're completely bonkers in love with you. How would he respond to a message that only has you, probably slightly anxious, telling him to call you? Get this story out to him any way you can. If he then decides to fully break off contact, well, then he was a sucky friend. And OP responds, "Yeah, I should have sent them to him, but I didn't want to pile on when I knew he had already a big test the next day that he's been studying for months." An email is a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. I don't even know if I have a current email for him though. I'll figure something out and lay out the facts for him. I hesitate to tell my common friends about this for fear of poisoning the well if he and Allison stay together. I did that once in college where his girlfriend at the time cheated on him and left him, and he fell into a horrible depression. All our friends asked me what was wrong with him, and I told them that he needed us to cheer him up because he'd been cheated on. Turns out, he and his ex got back together within the week, and we had to get through another 2 years where the entire group hated her and isolated her because of what I said. I don't want to repeat history if he and Allison do stay together. Violent Shapes says, "She is so jelly of you, OP. Your best friend's girl was hoping to get the gory deets on her man's yeah. Sorry, I know that's gross. Basically, if you want to do right by your friend, keep him in the loop about his girlfriend's behaviors. This is typically a deal breaker for me and my best friend, who is like a brother at this point too. If our significant others aren't cool with us, it's usually a tip-off. We've got a jealous, life ruiner, maybe abusive and definitely controlling person on our hands. If he and you are really best friends, even if it's not straight away, sometimes it takes a minute to see the light. It took me way too long to leave my ex. He'll appreciate your having tried to help. My BFF saved my life this way." It's Malarkey says, "Ouch, you've done everything right. Sure, it's rare for guys to have girls as best friends, but not impossible. If my best friend, also of 20 plus years, fiance came to me asking personal questions about him, I'd dodge him just like you, and then probably, eventually in person, bring up the fact that she was prying. This is effed. Sounds like she's controlling him, so he won't talk to you. I wonder what she told him you said. I'd say something like, I'm really curious what girlfriend said to you because I feel like it's super unfair for you to completely ghost me without hearing me out, with the hopes of getting an explanation. Additional information from Opie's comments. Some of you have said that maybe this is what she did to try to bond with me, but if it had been something like, I need help choosing his birthday present, or how do you think he would react if X, I would have been happy to help her. My problem with it was that she was approaching me under the presumption that I knew what it was like being in a relationship with him. Like his snoring problems, or if I had ever been bothered when he left the toilet seat up too much, and if we'd ever argued about it. All I could say to those was, oh, I don't know anything about that. You should talk to him and tell him it bothers you though. She probably did interpret that as me being weird, but I didn't know how to be more helpful than that. I understand exactly what you mean though. Thank you for providing a possible reason for why this all happened. Well, the community agrees what the girlfriend did was totally out of bounds and that OP has to do something. At least be honest and upfront with her best friend. So now let's move on to the update to see what OP did and how this story ends. Thanks everybody for your advice. I didn't get to read all of it at the time, but it is extremely helpful. To be clear, I'm not in love with Dan. However, I am definitely very non-confrontational and a people pleaser, which has gotten me in trouble in the past. I'm going to learn from my mistakes this time around. Basically, Allison was the one who blocked me on Dan's Facebook and other social media accounts. She blocked both me and my boyfriend. She may have even blocked my email. I did send one, but I haven't confirmed with Dan whether or not he received it. The reason why Dan wasn't answering his phone, however, was because he came home straight from his test and slept for the next around 12 hours. He woke up to a few missed calls and texts from me and a ton from Allison, ranging from her breaking up with him to forbidding him from ever seeing me again. Apparently, she also went to his apartment when he was asleep and banged on the door, but he was conked out. I'm kind of glad I didn't do the same thing because he was freaked out that she had done that. Anyway, he called me back after he had talked to Allison and was like, "What the F is going on?" I was asked to come over with my boyfriend and talk to him about what had happened. I did that, and he was quiet the whole time I was explaining it. I did show him the texts, cringe, and the received call from her where she accused me of being in love with him. He didn't say much, still groggy from waking up, I guess, and just said, "Oh, I am so sorry about all this." I told him it was okay and told him I was here to help however he needed. My boyfriend asked him what he was going to do next, and he said he needed to think and that he'd talk to us later. We left, and a couple of hours later he called me and said that he and Allison are going to couples counseling. That's about it. I told Dan that I feel like this relationship is unhealthy and that Allison has deep-seated issues if she's going into his stuff and blocking his friends without telling him, etc. He says he needs to give the relationship a fair shot and that she struggles with mental health issues and he's trying to be understanding of that. If she doesn't improve through counseling, he says he'll have to give it more thought. Not much more I can do here. He has all the facts now, but that's what he's chosen. I strongly told him that I don't think he should stay with her and that it's a very unhealthy dynamic, but he said he wants to try. I'm not really sure what to say now. I really don't think they should stay together, but it's his prerogative. I told him I'd support him, but that I didn't want to spend time with her because she made me feel so targeted and uncomfortable. He said that was okay and no matter what, he wasn't going to stop being friends with me. And again, apologized on her behalf. I hope he gets out of this as soon as possible, but I don't know what to say to him and he's a grown man, I guess. Well, OP, this is not a happy update because, well, let's face it, you did what you could, your friend heard you, but he's gonna stay with her and give it another shot. I'm not saying it's a bad ending because he's staying with her, I'm saying it's a bad ending because there's now a timer counting down, either on your relationship with him or on his relationship with her. But it's gonna happen. One of these two relationships will end, and hopefully it will not be OP's and Dan's. So on that note, OP, all the best in the future to you and your boyfriend, and hopefully Dan can see the light. Thank you so much for sharing and take care. And now let's definitely move on to a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Jupracabra. denied a raise and moved to overnight position and told, "Don't care how you do your job, just do it." Okay, I will. I used to work in hotels in a ski town in Colorado. Very expensive, but the quality of life very common staying there. I had started at a new hotel and was making $10 an hour living with my brother in a 2-bedroom place that was 700 square feet. Rent was half our income. When the slow season approached, I was told I would have to move to night audit 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. or risk being let go. The problem was, I lived 3 miles from the hotel and took the bus to get there, since I couldn't afford the car. The bus did not run at night or early morning, so I would be walking 6 miles a day in several inches to a foot or more in snow. So I asked for a raise. They said they'd get back to me, but need an answer and I need the job, so okay, I'll work night audit. I start the next week as an auditor, and while I'm being trained, I learned that I'm also losing a day. The other auditor works 3 days and I'll be working 4 days, not 5. That's a $320 a month hit to my income before taxes, so I'll need to be making $12.50 an hour to keep making the same thing with the cut hours, but I decide I'm going to ask for 14. I complete the training and meet with the GM. He asks how I'm liking it, and I start off with my concerns. I tell him I wasn't told I'd lose a day, and with having to walk 6 miles a day in the snow, I was going to need a raise to $14 an hour. He let out an audible sigh and tells me he can easily hire someone for this position for $10 an hour and to take it or leave it. I knew it would be very hard to find a job in the winter when everything closes up, so I stayed. As I walked out of his office, he says, "I don't care how you do your job, just do it." Okay, I will. You see, this job was easy. It was 7 hours of me doing absolutely nothing and 1 hour of actual work, which gave me plenty of time to find shortcuts. The software we used allowed us to import scripts that you downloaded from developers' sites. One such script was a way to make my job literally 1 click. The problem was it was $500 a year license for it. Obviously, I wouldn't propose to my GM a way to eliminate my job, but there was a free trial on every script for 7 days. I remember at the time you could get around paywalls on news websites by going into the web console and simply removing the paywall from the source code. So I decided to see if this was something I could do with this script. And what do you know? I downloaded it and opened the script in a text editor, and the only thing making this script a trial was a line that said, "License EXP," and had a date set 7 days out from when I downloaded it. I changed the computer's date to 8 days from now and tried to run the script in our software and got notification that said the free trial had ended. So I changed it back and set the expiration date to 2050. This took my manual job of 1 hour and made it 3 to 5 minutes. All I had to do was specify a date range and it'd check off what reports I wanted done and print it and click start. That was it. I always manually reviewed everything just in case. But that wasn't it. We had a kitchen where we made breakfast and dinner for the guests. Evening shift got free dinner and morning shift got free breakfast. I didn't get anything. They eventually decided to have the auditors set up breakfast so the kitchen crew didn't have to come in as early. I asked if we got free breakfast and was told no, despite setting up everything to make their jobs easier. I should also note that we had to clean any dishes left from dinner that the kitchen didn't get to, despite not even getting any dinner. But I had the kitchen all to myself for 6 hours. So I started making myself dinner around 1 a.m., whatever I wanted. The only limits were the ingredients in the kitchen, and since I was responsible for dishes from other shifts, I never left any evidence behind. I no longer had to buy food to bring to work. I later realized that I could put dirty dishes back in the return bin since it was covered, and the breakfast crew never checked to see if any dirty dishes were in it, and the very few times they did check, they assumed dinner forgot to check before leaving. I always cleaned up the dishes I used, making myself food out of fairness though. So my job no longer requires me to do dishes. I get free food and all I have to do is remember the date and click a button to do my actual job. What am I to do with all this time? I watched so many shows. I played online games on my laptop. I started learning Spanish. The GM did say he didn't care how I did my job, just do it. And so I did. I did eventually decide to move away for a much better job far away and had to give up the comfy life. I trained my replacement the way I was doing things. including the script, and did not teach them the manual way. Before I left though, I decided to change the trial date to 1 week out. 2 days after my last day, the front desk manager texts me and tells me that the other auditor was just fired for making racist remarks to a guest and that guest recorded him, so he was fired once the GM got in. He asked if I could come back until they got someone else and said they'd pay me $15 an hour. Unfortunately, I was leaving in 2 days, so there was no way. I got a call from the GM at about 5 a.m. the day of the expiration, and he asked about this free trial thing and why wasn't the new guy trained how to do the audits properly, who was apparently working 7 days a week since no one else knew the audit except the new guy and of course me. I reminded him that he told me he didn't care how I did my job, just to do it. So I did exactly that. I could tell he wanted to yell, but he held back. He then demanded I come back and fix it or he'll have to take legal action. I told him I was already at my new place 2,000 miles away, but I would happily do it for airfare, a free room, free meals while I'm there, and $10,000. That was when he lost it and I hung up. He texted me after saying he was contacting the lawyers and that I effed up and prepared to face the consequences. That was 5 years ago and I haven't heard anything from him since. I did eventually go back to that town a few months ago to see my mom and ran into the front desk manager from that place, who is a really nice guy. He told me that GM was caught effing the head housekeeper in his office by his wife one day, later divorced him. The 19-year-old girl working the front desk in the mornings later filed sexual harassment charges against him and he resigned after that. The assistant general manager jumped ship after that. The GM was also a coach for a baseball team and hit a kid with a metal bat, breaking his arm, and got his crap rocked by the dad. Not sure what happened to him after that. The front desk manager now runs the place as general manager, and he's made sure that he, the assistant general manager, and the front desk manager are all trained to do the audit. Well, OP, you were just following directions. You got told to do the job however you wanted, and you did it. So good for you. Thank you for sharing, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.